James Hesky is here.
Am I? I mean,
Yeah.
are any of us here?
Ooh, wow, really getting deep, just right. James, you were one of the early guests on this podcast when I started doing it years and years ago. Do you remember that day?
I do not remember the day. I
No?
remember doing the podcast.
Okay. Do you remember that we went to Fogo de Chao before doing the podcast?
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And yes. Okay, I do remember now.
With it was me, you, Butterly, and I don't want to use his real name. What's his pen name? Sam Francis is his pen name.
Right.
Because he recently asked me to remove his name from the listing because one of his students found it by searching his name, by searching his real name, and I was like, oh yeah, dude, I can get rid of that right away. That's like, oh, imagine like changing, like that's what's keeping me in comedy. The fact that if I have to change careers now, I would have to delete everything or legally change my name to something else.
Well, I work in mental health, and I just have to be open and honest right up front with every new job that this is part of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like there's too much video, there's too much stuff out there. Like you're gonna find it at some point.
Yeah, but like, yeah, the idea of like, I'm not sure what grade he teaches, but just like going and Googling your teacher and finding some ridiculous podcast he did like 8 years ago.
I still remember when Chip did the what was the video, the Deck the Hall in Oats.
Oh yeah,
and one of the top comments was, "That's my teacher, Mr. Chantry."
And he was like a third grade teacher or something. So just like an 8-year-old kid, or not, I don't know, 9, whatever you are in third grade. It's like,
it's a very family friendly, like, funny video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing controversial about Deck the Hall in Oats, except for Tommy Pope being in it.
Right.
Right. Tommy Pope's face.
Just very Italian, aggressively Italian.
Tommy, we love you.
Yes. Well, that's been that's been my time.
Yeah,
we're canceled.
But if you're listening to this, I'm gonna plug it right now. There's gonna be one bonus episode with James Hesky on the Patreon, and guess what? I'm gonna post the old one there too, so you can hear all the things we talked about 8 years ago after eating way too much Fogo de Chao. Just
I may have been laying on your floor.
You did at some point, because we didn't like half-ass it.
Oh no,
we did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm. And I think at that point there's no way any of us could really afford Fogo de Chao either. So if you go, you can't afford it.
We made a decision.
I'm gonna eat for the next 3 days.
Yeah, we saved up money for like 2 paychecks to be able to eat all the salad bar we wanted.
Oh my gosh, so much fun though. Oh, yeah. that was such a great day. I remember like purposely skipping lunch and just thinking about it all day. Like we were texting all day about it. Like this is just making so much plans. Yeah. I planned my meals 24 hours in advance.
Yeah, we're like coaches in the NFL. We have like a game plan. We have like in-game adjustments in case certain things are. Oh, what if they run out of smoked salmon at the salad bar? Well, then you got to get some of that good bacon, and that'll replace the salt levels from the. You'll get the salt from the smoked salmon, but it'll be in the crispy bacon from the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can take the bacon off of the scallops and put it on the shrimp and mix it in.
We were professionals, and I'll never. I remember recently going to like a bad buffet and having like and not enjoying my time, and I was like, something changed and I'll never have it back. I will never have those days back of like being able to just like enjoy a shitty buffet, and it's a little bit sad.
Yeah, those there were times, and those times before going to the movies in South Philly.
Yeah,
going to, what was it, Royal Buffet or what was it?
Ruby, I think.
Ruby Buffet. Yeah.
I think I would still enjoy a Ruby Buffet. I have to test it. I have to test it.
but just going and then at some point having to use the bathroom because realizing that you didn't want to sit through Transformers or whatever we're going to see, and definitely having diarrhea a third of the way through.
Yeah. I would say that Ruby Buffet is probably like, because like,
can I say diarrhea on this podcast? I didn't.
Can. This
okay,
is a
right.
diarrhea friendly podcast.
Okay.
Definitely a diarrhea friendly podcast.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I would say the food level at a Ruby Buffet is, I don't know, C plus at least, maybe B minus, which is quality enough. I'm talking like I went to like an old country buffet, which like the food is like D, like D level food. Like that's, if they want to sponsor us, I'm sorry, you're D level food. I would say I think I'm being cautious in labeling it like a B minus. It might actually be like a solid B at the Ruby Buffet Chinese buffet on Columbus Boulevard in South Philadelphia.
You got to know what. I think it's also because we knew which foods to avoid there. There were definitely just whole items to be like, nope, not having that.
Then you don't mess around with like the mayonnaise seafood or whatever. Like it's just labeled mayo seafood. No, thank you. I'll eat the General Tso's chicken. I'll eat, just stuff smothered in sauce. Hope the ice cream machine works today.
Yeah. And then like they would have like good chicken tenders or something weird like that, and there's always something that they have that's good, that's like an American food
that's weird. Yeah, like the pizza's always like strangely good in a very specific way. It's not like, actually, if you ordered a pizza and it came and a Chinese buffet pizza came, you would be the most angry in the world. But like to have a little slice of like of whatever, it like crackery crust weird cheese pizza at a Chinese buffet, you're like, this is pleasing me.
Yeah, this works. So,
and then
especially because I'm dipping it in my General Tso's.
And then 500 pieces of Texas toast garlic bread.
Yes, that was always the one. You make like a sandwich out of something. You're like, I think I just made a beef and broccoli sandwich with my toast.
Yeah, I am a food genius. Somebody called David Chang an idea for one of his new restaurants.
My move now in New York is the all you can eat sushi, which they have a number of places, which is always, it's more expensive than the regular buffets, but you can get really good food and good sushi.
Yeah, there's a good one in Philly that I will go to like a couple times. I've been in town for my birthday. I think it's on like Chestnut Street or like 13th and Chestnut or something, and it's great. It's like, it's quality. You're not getting like garbage stuff. You're getting like freshly made rolls when you get the all you can eat, and it's like $30, which is like
30,
not that
35
bad.
bucks. Yeah, and you'll eat for the day.
Like, I remember going 2 days in a row once. Because here's what happened. I went on.
Even when you've been as thin as you've ever been, you've always been the best fat guy, and I love it.
I went on New Year's Eve, and I was working at Helium. So I went on New Year's Eve, and I think I came down from New York and got there like a little bit late, and like was meeting friends to eat there. So everybody got like the all you can eat, and I had to leave. So I only had like 1 hour to eat all you can eat sushi.
Scratch the itch.
So I like had like, a decent plate of sushi. I had more than enough food for any regular human being. But then the next day, like went to the New Year's Day parade in Philly, saw a bunch of mummers be super drunk, and then was like looking for a place to go for lunch. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going back.
Yes.
And just like I was just like, I am fully scratching this itch that I did not get to.
Because that is the worst, when you do it and you're like, you leave and I should have had one more plate.
Yeah.
One more.
You feel like you ripped yourself off.
Yeah. You're like, I for some reason my stomach doesn't hurt.
Yeah, you want to land in that specific area of like not being sick, but definitely feeling not correct.
Right. Like I need a nap. I just want to lay down, stare at my phone, think about something terrible I did 10 years ago.
I want to sleep. I don't want to die.
Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah, I want to leave for a little bit, not forever.
A coma. Yeah, exactly. Just I want to drift off. And if it happens, it happens. I don't want to die, but if it happens,
Yeah.
it'll be sad for everybody else. but I died doing what I love.
What I love, yeah. Oh, everybody would say if I died from a buffet related accident, I want everybody to know I died from doing what I loved.
Yeah, just like Jimi Hendrix your way out, just choking, just choking on a piece of spicy tuna.
Just mercury poisoning.
Oh, there was fentanyl laced. Those were fentanyl laced rainbow rolls.
We couldn't quite tell the cause of death because it was both mercury poisoning and choking on tuna. So one caused the other, or they both just came in together.
There was one time that I went to an all-you-can-eat sushi place, and then I got concerned not by the amount of food I was eating, but by looking over at how much of the bottle of soy sauce I had consumed. Oh. I was like, I should stop based only on that.
There is a level of sodium.
There's no way that's okay.
Well, yeah, you start Googling like lethal level of sodium and then seeing how much is in 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. And you're like, I have to be past this.
Yes, I'm. Yeah, there's no way, like somebody get a blood pressure cuff on me now.
Do you remember that one that we went to in New York that was like, there was a time limit on it and it was like, this is a challenge, but it was also, it was all you could eat and drink sake.
Yes, they gave you sake or like beer or something. Yeah.
But it was just full of like crazy NYU students.
Yes. Yeah. So that was, we went there thinking we had found the best thing and it turned out to be kind of the worst.
Yeah, it was like a bad, because like the NYU students were there for the sake and we were there for the sushi.
Yeah, we were mature adults.
Like, yeah, there were like 21-year-olds there who were like, all you can drink sake for an hour for $15. Let's go. And we were like, we want Philadelphia rolls.
Yeah,
I will have one beer and maybe a shot of sake, and they're just like yelling and screaming and like breaking glasses, doing sake bombs and shit.
Yeah, we're like, that just fills up your stomach and it leaves, then you don't have room for a spider roll.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, just getting ready. Like, can't fill up on sake. We gotta get the nigiri. Eat the rolls without rice because that fills you up too fast.
I know, too many carbs.
Yeah. Just eat the straight fish pieces. James, what did you want to talk about on this podcast? Or do you just want to
just sushi? Just all you can eat sushi?
I mean, that's fine with me. We can just go.
Yeah, I didn't even want to do a podcast, man.
Well, thanks for being here.
No, so there's this pilot that I've been trying to think through. I mentioned that I work in I can't remember if it was when we were recording or not.
Yeah, we were.
Okay. But it is this pilot, but I work in mental health, and I work with special needs adults. I'm a one-on-one for special needs adults, and one of the things that I like about the job so much is that you never know what family you're gonna end up working with. Because mostly I work with people on the autism spectrum, so you just end up wherever. That affects everybody. And
are you with like a service that places you with different families, or do you like a solo guy who's just like families will hire you?
Hired gun, baby. So it's sort of in between. I work specifically through, I have to work through an agency, but I only work on certain cases where it's through basically the agency only acts as a middleman.
Okay.
Because I don't have a master's degree, so I can't bill insurance directly. So I have to, I need there to be a middleman, and the agency is.
Okay.
But I work only certain cases where I can bill a little bit higher.
That was a very entertaining 30 seconds based on a question that I asked just out of my own curiosity.
Yeah. So I have to deal with all these agencies, but I get to sort of pick and choose. I'm the agency acts as a middleman, but I can sort of work with the families. And the way it's made is that the families are essentially my boss,
Mhm.
We figure out the hours. The agency does all the billing. That's what's on my paycheck, is that
Yeah.
I'm getting paid by the agency. They have to do any training and background checks and all that stuff. But so I had this idea where there's somebody who does my job, and they work for two different families, and one is they have the child, a young adult, somebody who that person's father is in the mob,
Okay.
and they work for another family, and that person's parent
Is a cop.
is works in the FBI, bringing down the mob.
What? Oh, that's so goofy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's also about this person like just trying to get their shit together, because all of the people who work in this field are also insane,
Yeah.
and none of us have our shit together. We usually don't get paid very well, and all of the other craziness that happens in this world is there's just a whole bunch of stuff there. So like the mob boss is like using the son to do like, they'll do like travel training and be like, hey, why don't you figure out like how to get from point A to point B, but he's just like make him do collections and like do like stuff like that. But also the mob boss is a nice guy and like actually is a good boss to the main character.
Yeah, it's like a Tony Soprano situation.
Right. And the FBI agent is a real shitty boss, because I've had shitty parents where I'm like, I
Oh
hate
yeah.
everything about you. But then like maybe they're
And also
doing
just like, fuck cops, man.
right. And they'll want to use you as like a personal assistant.
Yeah.
They'll be like, yeah, can you go pick up my laundry? I'm like, I'm not here for that.
Yeah. So you'll just put all the bad experiences you've had with clients, families
Yeah,
onto the cop, and then all the good one, like the good
yeah,
things that you've had with families.
right. You try
Yeah.
to take all of those, and the hard part is I have to do all of this without while keeping everything confidential. Nobody can look or sound too much like anybody I've ever worked with.
Yeah,
It's
and
got to
like
be a caricature. So
I'm
I also want
sure.
to protect identities
Yeah.
and make sure I'm not really making fun of anybody. Because while I've worked with people who were difficult, I always understood why they were difficult, or even why they wanted me to pick up their laundry. It was convenient. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
James, you're helping. You're here to help out, and they're in a difficult position. They're overextended, and
Yeah.
so I don't want to bash these people either. But for a pilot, I want to make fun of them.
Sure. Yeah. And it is like, there's like it's not my job type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's like, hey,
that like, yeah. Uh-huh.
uh,
How much of the is this just like you have the premise, or have you like given much like thought to like what would happen in
I started trying to write an outline, and I
Mhm.
realized that the act structure is really messed up, because I think
Yeah.
I know where I want to get to, which is that at the end, basically both the um the mob family and the cop figure out.
Great. That was going to be one of my first questions. Do they know that he's
Yeah,
like performing double duty, or like working for each one?
right.
Like
So I
what
think
is
it's,
there?
and like, so that the main character is trying to keep everything a secret.
Yeah.
And also it's like trying to get control of their life too,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because I think that the whole thing that I've been writing the main character as a female, mostly only for the thing of I just don't want to write myself.
You're set. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's to keep myself from writing James in there over and over.
My thing, whenever I write a pilot and like the main character is like somehow like like, oh, this is like a representation of me, it's always just David, because that's my middle name. It's just always like,
Mm-hmm.
I finally did write a pilot that where I just was just like, fuck it, and I just like named it myself. That's like
Yeah.
very like because it's like very it's more autobiographical than other things that I've written. So I'm like, I don't care if I just use like I think I used like actually my full name in it. It's
Yeah.
like at
This
some
is
point.
me. It's me, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, James, you caught me at a good time because I've been like over the past like 2 years, I've like my mind has been much more in like, all right, I'm gonna fuck around and like work on pilot stuff than stand up. So I it's like I'm like way more like
Good.
kind of like fresh in terms of like outlining pilots, like getting shit together. What is your like have you had like do you have like a process with it? Do you have like a here's what I do before I get to writing? Because I feel
I
like the pre-writing process is way more like
Mhm.
it's way more work than like when you actually sit down to do the pages.
Right. And I try to do a lot of pre-writing where I will think about it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll, a lot of times when I'm just walking, I'll just be thinking
Yeah,
about like, wait, where's this? What's happening in Act One? Oh, this is what needs to happen.
yeah.
Um, oh, that thing that I thought was Act Two. Actually, that's the cold open.
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
and then I'll go back and I
That's
might
where things start actually. Yeah.
and I'll do that for like 6 months, and then I'll purposely not think about it for a month, and then come back to it. So actually, when you brought this up, I was like, oh, this is actually a good time to maybe come back to it.
Nice.
I've also been very busy, so I just haven't had any time to think about it or work on it.
Yeah.
So this might get me to the point. I tried writing the cold open a few maybe like 2 months ago. And I was
Mm.
like, no, I don't think it's I don't think I'm there yet
You're not
because
ready to yeah.
and then I stopped and I went back to just the thinking process and working on the outline, and because I think
Mm-hmm.
it really needs to be more,
Just
I
like
just do
tight
bullet
and
points
salt.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and then just fill it in.
Mm-hmm. What do you see? Do you see it being um like a cable comedy, where it's like, you could be like a little more like kind of flexible with the structure? Do you see it being like more of like a kind of like network comedy where you're just like A story, B story, C story, and then like, like a problem comes up, they try to fix it and then they solve it, like, that kind of thing, or just like more loose of like
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I was, you know, I was thinking it's gonna be, semi traditional,
mm,
as far as, like network, but that's also just more the format because it's the format I'm most comfortable writing in.
yeah,
It doesn't mean it can't go a different way.
yeah,
It's just it's because it's what I know how to write, and I don't want to swing for the fences and just put shit
yeah.
on a page. I feel like it
Uh-huh.
could turn into something else, but
I think with like, yeah, with like picking a network style comedy or something, it is a little more like mapped out blueprint of like,
mhm.
okay, you're gonna hit these beats, you're gonna have a cold open, and then in the first act, you're gonna have like, you're gonna set up the storylines, it's gonna end with like the first act's gonna end with like a big problem, and then like they're going to try to fix it in the second act, and like it gets worse because of how they try to fix it, and
Mhm.
then in the third act, it either like, they fix it or they don't, and then they learn a lesson from it and it like resolves, and like kind of everything like gets set back to normal at the end, because it's like, like not real major like character changes happen because it's like an ongoing sitcom
Yeah.
kind of thing, you know.
I don't want it to be episodic.
Mhm.
Um I think it'd be a little more serial,
Yeah.
so just the way I think it's based. So
Yeah, there would be
in
some sort of progression and like,
in
mhm,
that sense it would be different than a typical sort of network comedy.
mhm,
There just because there is a bit of a sort of a through line here with the something going on with them having to deal with this fact that they're are they going to catch him, or who's
yeah,
catching who, and
you're
there's a crime story here.
is he going to be able to keep it? Yeah, because there's a question the whole pilot. It's like, oh, like, are we watching a show where he's constantly going to be hiding it from each family that he
Mm,
is like pulling this double duty,
mm.
or are they going to find out, and how is that going to inform how it goes forward? And I feel you've already made the decision that they're going to find out, and then it's going to be like he's they both decide to keep him for their own selfish reasons or whatever, you know.
Right. So yeah, my thought about that too was that it's about the show is also so the main character sort of feels out of control and is trying to get a sense of control back
Yeah.
in her life, and um she she's done a bunch of dumb shit, but she's good at her job. She's she's in her 30s and kind of like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? I'm good at this, but I have so it's
Yeah, she's in the middle in a lot of different ways, like in her personal life and now like in this situation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, but she's also like she doesn't have the control that she wants, and um she's kind of forced into taking certain roles that she wishes she didn't. So when she's working for the cop, she's forced to take to just do whatever jobs she has to, because like, well, I need this job. She needs it for her insurance. She needs it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then she ends up working for this mob boss, and she thinks it's perfect because it's like, okay, this is actually great. This guy is great. It's the family's much nicer, is treating me better,
Yeah.
and now I have more control. I have more say in my life. This is actually I've nailed it. Now I'm in control, and nobody can play me anymore. And then
Uh-huh.
so
Oh
finally
yeah,
she's like,
and then they're
yes, I
both,
did it. And then
and then
the
yeah.
reveal at the end is actually they're both going to now start using you as a puppet for
Yeah,
their
for what
own.
they want. Does she know that the mob boss is a mob boss when she comes on as to work for him?
So I'm gonna
He's
have it.
like kind of like a known figure, like
He got so I have it
Tony
that
Tony Soprano style or whatever. Like
yeah, I
he's
have
in
it
the
that he got
news.
out. Just got out
Okay.
of prison and is kind of trying to gear his shit back up.
Yeah. And where is he in like the hierarchy of the mob? Is he like a soldier guy? Is he like captain boss style? Like,
I had him as like a boss who got out and
okay.
is claiming that he's retired,
Uh-huh.
but is clearly
Clearly
starting his trying to get his empire back. So
cool.
he also is trying to get his empire back.
So he's like a guy who like, yeah, he's done his time. He comes out. He has like people's respect. He's like publicly saying that he's retired, but like slowly trying to get back into like the I am rewatching The Sopranos currently, so I'm going to drop like lingo in. I'm like, he's trying to get his juice back. He's trying to get his
Yeah,
he's trying to put money back on the street. Yeah.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
yeah. Man,
And he's a nice. He's not Phil Leotardo. He's not crazy.
yeah, uh-huh.
He's a little
He's
more,
he's he's more he's more Tony
much more
basically.
Tony.
He's Tony. He's like a guy who's like, we made a decision to come into this life. If bad stuff happens or we have to do, he justifies the
Mhm.
bad things he has to do by saying that everybody who's in on this agreed to be in on it. Anybody who loses money is a degenerate gambler. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they knew the stakes when they were getting into it, so if I have to hurt somebody, it's part of the agreement, you know?
Right. And I have them
Like, yeah,
and he'll like in an opening scene, they beat up one of his own, or in one of the early scenes, it started off as like a cold open, but then I think I'm changing it. But they beat up he has one of his, and like they're gonna beat up somebody who owes them money, but then he just turns on one of his own guys because he uses the word retarded, because
yeah.
it's like no, we don't use that word.
uh
And it's like, so he's because like, no, that's my son.
because he's been touched by his son. Yeah, his
Yeah,
son has like touched his heart, and like
yeah,
he's got like that sort of side to him as well. Yeah.
yeah. So
um yeah, I
um
mean, here's the great thing about this in terms of like, writing it as a pilot is that it's like very obvious where the like you don't have to think too far outside of the pilot in terms of like, if you ever had to pitch this to somebody, it's very obvious that it is a show. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like nobody would be like, well, where does it go from here? It's like
right.
super obvious. Like you don't have to do too much thinking outside of the like pilot itself, which is good because it like kind of stamps some questions. You can completely focus on the pilot. You don't have to like build things in that are like, well, this is where this is how it could go for. It's very clear how it could go further. It's
Yeah.
a very like very strong premise that has like legs that could go for however many like seasons or whatever you wanted it to. So it like makes it super easy to focus on like the story of the pilot. And like that brings me to my question of like, have you figured out like what the storylines are for the pilot that you want to write, or like a little bit, or are you still toying around in that
And
area?
that's where I'm struggling the most.
Yeah.
And I think and I it's where I have to think through a little bit about what this main character, what her past is, sort of why she's so fucked up,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like where she wants to end up. And maybe a little bit more about also sort of the mob guy, like maybe like just each family, like almost think through just giving them a backstory
Yeah.
to
Like think of who the characters are and then try to figure out the
like, yeah, how they've arrived here, to
mm-hmm.
just to give that more
Yeah.
give them more depth, because right now it's almost like I'll get there and then there's not enough depth to them. I feel like I'm talking to in my mind when I think about them, they're very two-dimensional.
Cool.
um
I have a quick
but
thing
yeah,
that we could
do you
do
have
on.
things that you do for this? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we can even do one for like a few minutes on the podcast, which could be like an interesting like, exercise to watch. But yeah, when like in terms of like yeah, because it's interesting like, character character is kind of most important, and that like forms the plot, right? And those like
Hmm.
details, like you want everything to like come from the character and be like honest to like who the people are that you create. And then like um so like figuring out the character is important, but you do have kind of like the archetypes there that are pretty strong enough where I think you can start just like kind of blue sky brainstorming scenes or things that you would want to see. And like I recently saw this on like a YouTube like writing clip from like some like screenwriting talk or something like that, which like I really like, which is just like, set a timer. If you're doing this by yourself, just like 20 minutes, right? So you have the story, right? It's about a social worker who works with two different families. One's a cop, one's a mobster.
Yep.
Awesome, right? So like set a timer for yourself when you're working for yourself. It could be just like 20 minutes or whatever, and then just blue sky anything you would want to see in that. Like if you were going to watch a movie or a TV show about this, like what either could happen or what would you want to see that would be interesting, and just write like 1,000 ideas, or just like
Yeah.
just keep going with any idea. And then like, later you're going to look at that sheet of paper and you're going to see which ones like make sense for your pilot, which ones you want to build in now, which ones like, oh, it doesn't make sense for a pilot, but like maybe I could use this later if I'm writing like more episodes or something. So like, I don't know, would you want to try that like right now, just for like a few minutes, just saying like, all right, like what could be a scene, like what could be scenes that we want to see in a pilot about this show, or a pilot
Yeah.
about this topic?
That yeah, definitely just talk it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
just anything, just like simple idea, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, just yeah, throw out anything that we want,
yeah, I mean, you want to see the character, the main character sort of meeting the mob boss, and you want to see them meeting the cop, so you want to see them, how they interact with
Mhm.
each of these characters. And then
Yeah,
you want to see those two characters, the mob boss and the cop,
on their
sort of
own,
on their own. So you want to see
outside
how,
of
like, outside of that.
yeah, who they are with the main character, who they are away from the main character. You want to see the main character with them. You want to see the main character either on her own or in her personal life, like who
Yeah.
she's like. Yeah, you want to see her kind of like being good at her job too.
Yeah.
And like being able to handle things in different way, like handle problems in different ways, because especially if her like relationship with the cop and the mob boss is going to be like a little bit different, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like you want to see you want to have a scene where like the cop asks her to do something that's not her job, and
Right.
you want to have a scene where like the mob boss like understands something about her and her job that like makes it easier for her, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like within like each of these things that we're saying like we want to see is a whole new opportunity to set another 20-minute time limit and
Mm-hmm.
and blue sky brainstorm what those things could be, you know. It's
100%.
pick, you know, so like it's just like everything is a new avenue, and then you just like, that's why it's so daunting, because it's just like such a blank slate that you can like everything you can do like 20 minutes of brainstorming for each one, and then like go pick the best one.
Right, and that's where I sometimes get lost. I'll let
That's
the enemy. I'll let the enemy of
good be
the
perfect
good
or
be
whatever.
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
I do the same
And
thing. Yeah, I
uh,
freak out trying to pick the perfect path instead of just like picking a path and making that one good.
and realizing I can fix it.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Uh-huh.
I'm not acknowledging. Actually, and this is the thing. I literally said this. Was it yesterday to somebody? We were working at my job,
Mm-hmm.
which I think I'm pretty good at. And we were saying I was telling her because we were starting on a new project with a client. I was saying we don't have to get this right the first time.
Yeah.
Just do it, and we're gonna have to fix it
Yeah,
later.
you're gonna rewrite it anyway. So you might as well just like, yeah.
And I was like, don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Let's just, what you have right here is so good. And but don't worry about it, because we're gonna have to make changes. This is
Yeah.
so good as is.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just think about what the changes are going to be 2 weeks from now, because we're dealing with a human being who's going to have to change things. But I don't take that advice, and that's also
Yes.
that's the kind of stuff that
I can give advice.
I want in this show, that I want this main character to show. I want to
Oh
showcase
yeah.
that she's
Can give
really good
advice
at
to
this
other
job.
people,
She's so good at it,
but
but
doesn't
she's a
take it
mess.
herself. Yeah. And those are really funny, like kind of like cut get, you know what I mean? Like she gives like, you know, she could be giving advice to one of her clients and like telling him all this stuff. And then like very next scene, she is like in a situation where she could be using that advice and doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
she's telling somebody how to be patient, or how to, you know, like things that you know, how to be patient, how to not like, I don't know, you know, these things better than I do because you're working in the field.
I find
Yeah.
this stuff all the time with my clients. Where I'll just
How to like, yeah.
yeah, all right, well, let's calm down and let's use our words. And then I'll just think about that night where I'm sitting there just shoving a second burrito in my mouth.
Yeah. And those are, and
Like, what am
yeah,
I doing?
like things like that are like perfect, like, you know, like
have a Twitter meltdown.
cut
What
to,
am I doing?
yeah, just
Shut
cut
up.
two gags to start
Yeah.
like a new scene in a very funny way, or like, yeah, things like that.
And that's where I want the humor to come from in the show. Is her life is is falling apart. She can't keep her shit together,
Yeah.
and at the same time she's doing all of this crazy stuff. And
Yeah.
and the fact, I can't remember who it was that gave me some really good advice on a different pilot, but it was, if you make the character more competent, you can then at their job, you can make them
Less
sillier
in their real, yeah.
in other things. Like you can, there's like
Yeah.
more humor in the fact that if they're like a huge fuck up.
I wrote to make this about me.
Please.
I co-wrote a pilot with my friend and former podcast guest Stephanie Mikas, where we wrote it, two friends who like basically decide to be each other's therapists, because it's like they like, you know, they like give each other advice, they talk to each other all the time, and like, you know, like they can't afford therapy or something like that, so they have to like quit, and they like, but they both have experience with therapy, so they like kind of like know the lingo and like know how to like, you know, so they like, you know, are just like literally be each other, like they have therapy with each other once a week, and then like try to help each other out. And it like, you know, it ended up being like a pretty decent, like, but it's just like, yeah, that's like, that falls right into that, like where you can give advice but not take it, and like stuff like that. And like I love like that sort of like place to play around in, like somebody who like, you know, like, because that's so true to everybody. You can like, when you see a situation from the outside, you like know exactly what to do. Like, oh, that's what I would do if I were them. But like, you're in a similar situation all the time where it's like, whatever your own insecurities are, you can't communicate it in the way that you like, oh, it's just so easy. Just tell the person the truth. And then it's like, you know,
Yeah.
in your own, how many times you watch like a TV show and you're just like, oh, all he would have to do is tell the other person and this whole
Yeah,
situation would be, you know, would be
exactly.
solved. But it's like, yeah, when you're in that situation, it's like, oh, my feelings. Oh no, my feelings. Oh, my own perception of what
Hmm.
someone, oh, my own perception of what someone else thinks of me is all a creation of my own mind, but that is all that matters.
It was like the other day I was leaving a store and taking off my mask, and I probably made some sort of dumb face as I did it. And some guy said, "Oh, it'll be a great day when we get to throw those masks away, won't it?" And and in my head, I wanted to have some argument like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal to wear a mask. You to wear a mask, maybe
Yeah.
you save
Uh-huh.
somebody's life. You don't know, maybe. And instead, I just went,
You
yeah.
yeah, you just agreed with him.
I was like, I don't want to have this fight right now. I
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
mental energy to have the mask or to have the face. To have, Jesus Christ, good thing I don't have to use words for my job.
I have a stand-up bit that I've never been able to fully get to work. Like sometimes it works really well and other times people are like, "Huh, what?" Where I just say, "I've won every argument that I've ever been in and here's how I do it." I just say to the other person, "Yeah, you're right." And then they shut the fuck up.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It
like no
works.
matter how wrong they are, I don't have to hear them blab their mouth anymore.
Yeah.
So
But
I win.
yeah, all of those arguments, the obviously fake things people post on Facebook
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like, my 3-year-old daughter said that, and it's like, no, she did not. I
Yeah.
promise. Okay.
I love mob TV shows. I had an idea for
Yeah.
one that was like sort of tangentially set in like the world of a mob that I've like never fully like outlined or written because like I have like a full fucking folder of like just like premises that I've never written. But it's like about a guy who like inherits his father's like sandwich shop
Yeah.
after like his dad dies, and it turns out it's like a front for the mob. You know, it's basically
Yeah.
like Satriel's in
Yeah. Yeah.
the so like it's about a guy trying to legitimately run a sandwich shop when like there's like moms. And I feel like I have like the perfect cold open in my head for it, and it's just a rip off of the Freaks and Geeks cold open where like, do you know, are you
Oh no, I
aware of
didn't. I
this?
didn't. I didn't watch Freaks and Geeks.
So
No.
Freaks and Geeks, the cold open's awesome. Um it starts with like just like showing the popular kids like hanging out after school, like just like being cool and talk about going to a party and stuff. And then it pans to under the bleachers where like the dorks are like smoking cigarettes and being scumbags. And it's like, no, the show is about these people.
Oh,
Like
that's great.
you think the show is about these people, but it's actually about these people. So I
That's
just want to
great.
rip that off where it's just like showing the like mob guys like hanging out in the back, like counting money and talking mob stuff. And then it just pans out to like the people working in the sandwich store.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's
Yeah,
like
my
one of those things where like that's, you know, it's obviously a ripoff. That's what like that like it's a ripoff of like the format, like
right.
the format of that scene. But like it makes me want to like get into that. It makes me want to get into that show, you know,
Yeah.
and let's just like write it. But like I haven't figured it out, and I have like at least two other projects of like scripts in front of it that I would ever want to write.
The cold open idea I have right now for this show is based on something that sort of like happened to me. Um, it was like it was it was one of those things where it started off being true, and then I take the like, oh my god, what if this continued in a
Yes.
certain way?
Uh-huh.
Sort of
What
like,
if it went this way?
what
Yeah.
if it went this way?
What if I actually said no, masks aren't that bad instead of just agreeing with the person?
Right. So the idea I have is that the main character, she shows up to work violently hungover. They're like at some they're taking the a bunch of the special needs young adults on like a field trip with their group. She used a car. It's like I have her using like a friend's car. She gets there. She forgets what it is that they're doing, but she just parks there. It turns out it's like a training place for the fire department and police dogs. And then the police dog comes and they're like doing a thing of where they're going to show the police dogs how the police dogs work, and they do have the training car right next to her car or her friend's car, and the car sniffs out like a bunch of drugs in at her car. So like it's going to show that she's just a mess of a person. Like, and at the same time she's going to like show, she'll have some sort of saves the cat moment, like where she's actually doing good work with the guys, but she's, also only half there. like one bloodshot eye open, but also connecting with the with the young adults at the same
like
time.
able to do her job even though she has this like outside like stressor going on. Like
but what really happened to me was I showed up that exact situation when I was 17 with my car. I was working at a summer camp where it was run by the Pittsburgh Police Department, and I pulled up my car. I knew we were visiting the fire department like training grounds. I did not know that it was also where they were where they train police dogs. And I pulled it right next to, they were going to do a demonstration, and it was right next to my car. And I had no idea if I had weed in my car. None. Like I was 17.
There could be. When
you're 17,
there always might be weed in your car.
There always might be weed in your car. And it was like the best place to keep it, so your parents couldn't find it. Because the one place my parents never were was in my car.
Also, when you're 17, if you found weed that you didn't know you had, it's a great day. But if a cop dog finds weed you didn't know you have, it's a terrible day.
Yeah.
It's like finding a $5 bill in an old coat, and it's like, lunch is free today, or you find you find an old like joint, and you're just like, ooh, I'm getting high today. But a cop dog finds it.
But so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get busted in the worst fucking way possible. So I'm thinking like maybe she gets busted, and there might be some sort of way where then the cop uses that as leverage against her to try to get her to spy against the FBI.
It's a very departed situation.
Right,
but she's both.
Exactly. Yeah.
She's Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio.
I just need to find my Mark Wahlberg.
That's the key to it all.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg is the special needs guy.
When you write, do you like think of like, okay, I'm gonna write this as if like this actor's playing it to like help you with the voice and stuff?
Yeah, so sometimes I will do that, and then sometimes I try to.
I feel like
not do that because I'll be like, oh no, I'm writing too much for this.
Or like if it's like a comedic actor, you're just like, oh, I'm just like stealing there, because it's like very how fun is it to be like, I'm gonna imagine shit, I'm blanking on his name. What the hell is his name? The like guy
Doogie Horner.
Oh yeah, I'm imagining Doogie Horner in this character, and then just like stealing his comedic voice and like writing like But again, like that's what writing is, or like I want to say it's not Jody Hill, but the fucking guy, the guy who Righteous Gemstones, Eastbound and Down.
I was just talking about him, Danny McBride.
Yeah, I don't know why I blanked on his name. He's the best.
I'm really bad with names. I've tipped the tongue syndrome for everybody.
It's like, one, it would be very hard to write as well as he does because he's like a master of it, but like he's so funny, you just want to be like, all right, well, this character is like him, and then like just like kind of just go off like writing in that voice for somebody.
It would be the best. And I feel like for this show he would need to I don't know where he would fit in, and this is where I also need to do a better job of creating the world around these characters. Who are their friends?
Yeah,
like
so
Danny
like
McBride, like I do such a piss poor job sometimes of thinking of just like, oh yeah, there's got to be a funny, like I wrote like a bartender character in, and I'm like, this is a great character that could just be the funniest person in the world. Like this is where a lot of humor, like
this
just
is
make
where
this
the
person either a complete idiot or smart as shit and super funny, like
Mhm.
whatever it is, but have something about them that
Just
is super funny.
make a choice and then lean into it as hard as you can. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things that like yeah, I try to do that. I try to picture somebody in my head because if I don't, like everything just sounds like me or like everybody
Yes. Yeah.
sounds the
Yeah.
same. So I try to have characters who sound different and like
All
that's
my
one way
characters
that I
sound
do
like
it.
you too, and it's weird.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's wild, as they
It's
say
like
now.
it's like when John Malkovich went into the being John Malkovich portal and just
Yeah,
everybody looked like John
you
Malkovich.
crawl into a hole and
Yeah.
then it's
Malkovich.
just
Everybody's just saying Malkovich,
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 Malkovich.
Malkovich, Malkovich, Malkovich. But it just says Herzog.
Yeah, which is almost as funny of a name.
Yeah.
Who do you want? So obviously it's like, the main character, the dads of the two clients, the two
Mhm.
how big of a part are the two, like the special needs
I
people
want
that
those
she
to be
works with going to be in the show?
I want those to be substantial parts because I want you to see her with the young adults going out like in the like you need
Into
to
the
see
world.
her
Yeah.
like in the world because that's a big part of her life and who she is, and you need to see her interacting with that world. I think it
Hmm.
would be too much to just have that be one-on-one. I think I need to do a better job of thinking about who they're interacting with. So I had this idea of
Yeah.
them like doing like travel training, so learning the subway system by doing
Yeah.
a
Uh-huh.
collection, and then
Oh,
like
and that's just like,
not realizing, like she doesn't realize they're doing collections,
oh, uh-huh.
and the young adult probably doesn't either. It's just like, oh, we're going to the
Yeah.
store and like doing daddy's errands.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, he's picking up
uh
envelopes for everybody.
yeah, just like they're just like sending Johnny in, and he comes in, he's got an envelope, and like nobody knows what's going on.
Because that's like a lot of the stuff you do is like kind of like job training,
Mhm.
like training to be like independent, like training to like, right, like
Yeah,
helping the special needs adults, like with things like that.
yeah. So like,
Hmm.
how could I take those things that I do, like how get a job, and what would that look like if I
Uh-huh.
was trying to get a mobster's son a job?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Like, because like the mobster could probably get his son a job, like doing, one, he probably doesn't like really need to work depending on, but like he wants to like, have something to fill up his time and make him feel fulfilled and like, but he doesn't want to like bag groceries. So he like,
Right, but then like could uh but how would that but then what would that look like, or if it's like trying to convince a mobster that actually this was for your son's benefit? There's like, yeah, you know
yeah.
what, it fills up his time, he actually enjoys it, he feels good, he likes to help people, he
Hmm.
has a sense of accomplishment, he'll make some money, he can do it, and then and then like how would the mobster react to all of that, and
Yeah.
sort of like
I think it's
seeing.
like, yeah, I think it's like a decision that you have to make. And I think you've already made it, right? I
Mhm.
think the angle, because you could go either way. And I think you've chosen to go one way with the cop and one way with the mobster, right? The angle is like, if like the mobster, like, does he like understand it? Does he go along with it? Is he a supportive parent? And like, because like the mobster, right? You could have him, um, like get his son works somewhere, right? And the mobster could play it like, what's the angle for me? How am I going to profit off this? Or he could play it like, this is good for my son, I'm just going to let him have it, right? And I think you've decided that like the mobster is going to err on like the good parent side of things, where it's like, I keep my son out of this, but the cop is going to be like looking for angles to help himself out in whatever like the kid's doing.
Yeah, but I almost feel like it's also the mobster at times will have to be the mobster. Like you'll just like I don't I it'll be like
Yeah.
maybe the mobster will. Anytime you start to like the mobster too much, he'll do some mobster shit.
You'll be reminded that he is. Yeah.
And anytime you don't like the cop, they'll do some like, hell, you know what? That cop did just save
He'll like
somebody from
maybe
getting
help.
killed.
Yeah, he'll help somebody for real. Yeah.
Yeah, like all right, because people are complicated. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't just like, yeah, even in, the world of a half hour
yeah,
television show.
yeah. And this is the only other thing that I have been thinking about is is this a movie instead of a TV show?
Mm-hmm. I think I mean, anything kind of could be,
Yeah,
and I think the way you're thinking of it now, it's definitely a more of a TV show than a movie, because there
yeah,
are a lot of situations. I think this would be a movie if it was like, if there was a more definitive, like, oh shit, she gets caught. Now she has to play double agent to some very specific end, then
right.
it's a movie. But if it's like kind of like open ended, like they both are like both the cop and the mobster, like, I'm gonna let this happen because I could eventually pay off for me.
Yeah,
It could be a long game for me to
yeah,
learn whatever I can, as little as I can. And also, like, as like, I don't know, it's not like doctor patient confidentiality, but there's got to be some sort of level of that where like she's not going to be able to talk about stuff, and they're going to try to like get
well,
her
yeah,
to, or,
right. And so that's where like she's like she can't. I think there has to be. I think if you're subpoenaed, you can. That's one of the things that can break HIPAA. There needs to be a subpoena. So there'll be a lot of stuff where they'll probably try to get her to break it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to just try to get information out of her.
Yeah. Or
Um,
like, like most of the stuff that she sees from like, most of the stuff that she sees the mob, that like he's not exposing like a lot of his business to her, like
right.
she's just seeing him be like a good dad. So she like doesn't have a lot of like information for the other guy, but like, slowly she like will see things, or like little things will be exposed to her, or like the son might say things like unknowingly about like what the dad's doing, especially if it's like the dad's like just out of jail slowly ramping back up into the mob world. It will
Yeah.
like be a chance where he can slowly get like, something could develop that like, like a mob like rivalry happens, like a big
Mm-hmm.
score like things that like will like come up that she will kind of see or know about or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of like, oh, who's coming in, who's coming, who's coming through the house, who's, um, because they were always doing this stuff with like Uncle Junior, where they were just, coming in through the basement and trying not to be
Yeah.
seen, and when he's still running stuff through his house when he's under house arrest.
Mm.
And
Yeah, there's a lot of like fun stuff to like kind of like play around in both like mob world and cop world for here.
yeah, so I'm sort of thinking she sort of ends up being forced to become this weird double agent without, one is she doesn't really know it at first, and two is she she doesn't have that much information. And
Yeah. But
what
she doesn't have
she
that.
does have, she doesn't, it's like
Yeah, she's
it's
gonna
not gonna.
pick up things here and there, so like that's what like keeps her in the world. And like that's like what kind of like just the like idea, the little whiff that like she might have something for either one of them at some point is
it,
like,
it
and
has,
then the fact that, or they could use her for like misinformation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and that's I had not thought about that. I like that a lot.
And then
So
you
like,
do like, I do like that she needs both jobs,
mm-hmm,
right? You have to put her in a position where that's the thing. You have to put her in a position where she personally needs both jobs for
yeah,
whatever reason. Like maybe like, and you did mention this earlier, like the one with the cop is like the one that like is through a service. It like provides her health insurance. It like keeps her like registered with like whatever like board you
Yeah.
need to be registered with, right? It's
Yeah.
like her like legit job. And then maybe the mobster's paying her, like maybe he just hires her privately, and it's a side job, but she's getting paid a ton of money. So she needs both for different reasons, and that's like what's keeping her there.
Yeah, that's sort of what that's what I was thinking. Like that and that she was sort of she wanted to quit the other job, and the mob boss was gonna be like, no, you got to keep that other job. You got to keep it for you got to have a W-2.
Oh yeah,
like like, no, you got to have a legit
yeah, for like
side to
mob
anything you
reason.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm employed by the garbage company, like
Yeah,
yeah, or
yeah.
what, whatever his.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
you
he's
got to
like
be able to
teaching it.
prove income.
Like, I don't want to see some tax, and he's just leaving an envelope for her every
Yeah,
week.
she just learns things, but like she's learning life lessons from each one of them. Like,
Right.
oh, that's another great angle. Like, she's learning life lessons from both a cop and a mobster,
Right.
and that's something that could be like built in. That could be like an engine that's like kind of built in every episode. Like she's got a personal problem that she's trying to deal with, right? And then like
Yeah.
through things that she does with both the mobster and the which ones work for her in like.
I think your mic audio just your
I think I should be okay now.
Okay,
I think I'm replugged. Cool.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. So like yeah, so like she has a personal issue each episode, and she's learning things from both sides, like picks and chooses which ones work, which ones don't work for her. And like that could be like a plot or like a character / plot engine, that's like kind of built in addition to like what she is like specifically doing, like for the cops, for the mobster. But like yeah.
And then I almost feel like I want there to be almost a way that she could then confer with her like the special needs adults, like get clarification on it, like that, like they're her Wilson, like they'll say something to clarify all of it at the end,
because
so like you just got, sometimes you just got to breathe. Then she'll be like, oh shit, I gotta breathe.
Because in like the like the best, like the most like well written, like you can tell they put like so much work into these shows, like the Sopranos, like there'll be like two different storylines with two different characters, and then at the end you kind of see how they're both built around the same theme.
Yes. Yeah.
Like even though they're like way different stories, like you both see how they're these are both about loyalty. They're
both Italian.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It all just comes down to being Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, these are both about how they're like relationships with their mothers in some way, even though like it may not seem like that at the beginning or like where they're going at all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So figuring those out and getting those engines up and running, I think is, that's the part that that's always hardest for me. I feel confident about like the overall.
Here's another
of the show though.
Here's another thing. Like if you're going to choose like that kind of route, right? Like the thing where like, all the stories kind of are around the same theme, choosing a theme and then doing like those like blue sky like things for each one will kind of help you like make those links of like, so like since it's the pilot, right, the theme of the pilot episode should be the theme of the entire series, right? Yes. So what do you think the theme of like the series is?
Control.
Awesome. Yeah. So perfect. That's perfect. Like you can write like control, like take a piece of fucking notebook paper, write control at the top, and then write like whatever control means to you, and then like different stories that could like illustrate control. Do like one for the cop, one for the mobster, and then just like one for the main character herself, and like you'll see all these things. So she's losing control, she's trying to be in control, she's like and things that show that specifically more than just like
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then all the different ways that the different characters can feel in control or out of control, and have control over other people or lose that control.
Yeah.
I think that because that's one of the, I think, the biggest themes that I feel like in my job, and I think also just for people our age, is just having that sense of control. It's so important. And then to relate it to what I do for work, the young men and women that I work with, it I mean, I've just found like giving them a sense of control over something, anything that you can, is like the thing that is usually most helpful. So if they're really good at bagging groceries, or even if it's something at home, it's like, hey, they're really good at, if there's a job around that at home, and it's like they're the best at folding laundry, like that's the job they're good at, but they're just not good at washing dishes, maybe because visually they can't see the dirt, but they can fold the laundry because that works for whatever reason. Then let them fold the laundry way more than they wash the dishes, because it gives them a sense of control,
it
and like
gives
they
them
know what they can do.
Yeah, that's James. That's like, even like having that answer as quickly as you did is like such a good sign that you're like on a good path to like figuring out what's going to like work for the show. You know what I mean? Like having that like main theme of like control is like that's the type of shit that like makes me excited for you, and like
Thanks, man.
the next steps of like writing this, and like hopefully like some of the like, I don't know, like little like exercises will help just like break down because like from here you have the theme is awesome, you have the main characters pretty much set, you have what their relationships are to each other, and like how that all like plays off against each other. I think just like figuring out like the paths that like the storyline could take is like, once you choose like the main, like, like basically two stories that happens, like, or three, like personally, and then one with the cop, one with the mobster, like then like do you know like that like therefore meanwhile thing from therefore but meanwhile from like the South Park guys, which is like perfect. It's the best way to outline each of those stories, and then you just like, you build to like the end of act 1, end of act 2, and end of act 1, choose like the big plot points, like I feel like in this like choosing, like, okay, here's a question. Does she work like at the beginning of the show, right? Like the show starts, is she already working for both of them, or does she pick up one of the jobs during the episode?
I have her picking up the job with the mobster, but
Cool.
but what I have is that she already had a relationship with the like she worked at a school with the mobster's kid, and like
he liked her as a teacher, and like they want to bring her on as like private.
She got fired from the school because she did something dumb. Like I sort of need to figure out, it'll be something sort of like embarrassing and stupid, like she got drunk on a school bus or something like that with no kids in it, like or like, after the bus had been dropped off, she like took the bus and got a DUI, like on
just something really dumb, like
something like embarrassing and dumb that disqualified her from ever working in the school again. And this is like, so now she's rebuilding her life.
Nice. So yeah, I think that's like the end of act 1, right? Like she makes a decision to like work for the mobs, and then by like the end of act 2, like maybe is like that might be when like they both find out that they're like working, like that she's working for both of them, and then like, oh, it seems like it's going to be a big problem, like, oh shit, like is she good, like because she know, like, and then it's just like on like they both decide to keep her on, and like maybe they give her different reasons than their own reason, you know what I mean? Like they tell her, oh, it's no big deal, like you can't tell me anything anyway, they're not going to expose anything to you anyway, but like then like it's revealed that like, oh, we're playing a long game here, we think that like we'll eventually be able to use her for something that we might want or whatever.
I have that as end of act, like very, very end. That's almost like
that would be the very so end of act 2.
Well, no, I have end of act 3 is that it's found out that because it's what I have is that it's she, like, end of act 1 she takes the job, end of act two, and this is where it gets muddled, because I don't like my act two very much, is that it's like, and so maybe your idea is better, because it's like end of act two, there's not as much to resolve.
Yeah, because like I don't know the way I'm thinking. If it like builds to them finding out at the end of Act Two, that's like a big fucking moment, which is like a good like.
Yeah.
It's like just like a good way to end an act on like a big like plot point like that, and then it's like, oh, holy, so Act Two ends. You're like, oh, holy shit, how is this going to resolve? And like she's feeling the same way, and then it it kind of resolves with like she needs to stay in the job, she wants to keep them, and like they both like decide to keep her around for like their own reasons, slash she's like good at her job, she's proven that she's like good at.
Well, what if it was also, I'm thinking out loud, what if only at the end of Act Two, only one one side found out, like the cops found out, or
that's true,
or and she has to deal with that.
And that I think that works.
And
like
then end of
Act
Three,
well,
end of Act Three is the other side finds out, and so now,
because it creates oh yeah, that's true, it creates a problem, right? So like end of Act Two, one of them finds out and she knows, so she has to deal with that, and then end of Act Three, it's revealed that the other one knows and maybe she doesn't know that yet. So it's like kind of like a
cliffhanger at the end of,
kind of like a cliffhanger ongoing, like, oh shit, they both know, but she doesn't know they both know. We know they all know, I
feel like it would be like the more natural thing would be like the cops find out end of Act Two, and then end of Act Three, the mob finds out, and so you get this feeling that like, oh, are they gonna whack her for being an informant? I wrote a character,
or is it like or is it more like the mobster finds out first and then your work, like because that's a big cliffhanger, right? So that would like hang over to like the next episode even, almost, right? So like, which might not be a good way to end a pilot, because you want it to have a little bit more of a cleaner ending where like you like kind of see where things are going on. So it might be more interesting that the mobster finds out first, and that's like a big problem because you are thinking like, oh shit, are they going to whack her, right? And like then it's revealed like, no, it's not, like it's not that big of a problem, like she tries to hide it for a little bit, or like she comes clean or whatever, and the mobster's like, oh, I'm glad you came clean, I know this, it's not a big deal, you don't know anything about my business anyway, there's nothing you could tell them, my son loves you, my son trusts you, my son handpicked you, you're going to keep working with this. And then she's like, but I can't quit working for the cop, and he's okay with it, right? So like the mobster like says that he's okay, and then at the end the cop finds out, right? And then the cliffhanger slash engine going forward is the cop is like, I can use this, and that's why the cop,
I have an in.
Yeah, I think that's a cleaner cliffhanger for a pilot because you're not worried about her life.
Yeah,
as
that's
much.
True. That's
true. I don't know. That's just my outside suggestion of thinking on it.
No, I like that.
But then
this gives me a much better, because I really didn't like my second act, which is where a lot of times my pilots fall apart. I like my where I start, and then I'm usually kind of know where I'm going, and somewhere in the middle, my pilots are always like, "Ooh, that's gross.
Yeah,
Nothing's happening here."
I think that's where
now I'm way more excited.
I think that's where the like the South Park exercise really comes in handy, especially if you know where you want to start and where you want to end. You can just like therefore everything. So you have your first scene, you have where it starts, and you're just like, okay, like because that happened, what is a direct result of that? And you can do it like if you have 3 storylines, you do it for each one of the 3 storylines. So it's like, because this happened, where does it go for story 1, stories 2, story 3, and then like because she did that, what is the direct result of that? And then like, so you kind of like figure out the full path for each of the three stories that all end at the same kind of result. And then like kind of, just using logic and like what would be the natural thing to happen because of that, or and then like put like weird things in because it's a comedy, like, oh, it's a twit, like unexpected things, you know what I mean? Like, oh, the mobster finds out, like that could go to like him being mad, but it actually goes to him being okay with it,
Right. Yeah, I wrote in a character of the mobsters. The mobster has like another son who is super like he's sketched out by the he thinks that the main character like it's up to no good and like is worried about her.
Yeah, and like maybe that's how,
it's like
how they
thinks
find
she's an
out.
informant or something like that.
Yeah, maybe he has a son who's like involved in the business and he tails her.
Yeah. That's exactly
Follows her to her other job and like sees her working for a cop and then like, tells his dad,
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's good too, especially if like the dad and her have a good relationship, and then the other son is like skeptical, and he's like, also like working his way up in the organization, like trying to prove himself and stuff,
Because that also gives me an in for what I want to do in the show, which is talk about how difficult this is on the whole family.
Yeah.
In these situations where you have when you're the brother of somebody with special needs, you also are severely impacted by all of this, of everything that's going on. You now have to deal with all of these. You have to deal with me coming into your home.
Yeah.
Like I'm now in your home 20, 30 hours a week. You don't want me there. I mean, like,
yeah,
I think I'm a nice guy. I'm probably like the best case scenario. You have all these strangers coming in, therapists, and it's like you have to build these relationships. Some of them are really good. Some of them are real shitty.
Some of them will last a long time. Some of them won't. Like, you don't know how long they're going to be in your life for. Yeah.
And on top of that, there's this weird pressure to be a caretaker for your sibling, and knowing that eventually your parents are going to die, and you might have to like just take over everything.
Yeah.
So I want to have the sibling also become a character that I can work with as somebody that sort of starts off almost as a villain, but you really
understand because of the issues in his life. Yeah.
Yeah.
James, this is great. Do you want to be accountability buddies with our pilots? Like send each other like progress stuff and like ask each other questions, help each other brainstorm, like,
no,
over email. Okay, cool. I asked, you answered.
I mean, here's my my long answer is that I 100% do. I need to,
and
I right now I am working so much I don't actually know when I will have time.
Here's the thing.
My short answer is I need to figure out.
If this is a long, if you don't have like a specific goal, like I want to finish this by April, you know what I mean? That's cool. Like we don't have to set that. But when we are working on it, like, or when you're working on your stuff, I'm working on my stuff, if we want to like link up and be like, all right, I want to have this done. I will totally like read outlines, give you any sort of like any sort of notes, thoughts, please, things that you want as you continue to work on this.
This makes me want to go this weekend to at least go back and update the outline that I have. I'll send that to you and just see and send you those notes, because this is super helpful to really clean up those act breaks. And I think that helps a lot. I think one of the things I was doing was I was putting a little too much into maybe just there's too much in the story of I was writing in the backstory of the main characters instead of because I needed it.
Yes. And you need it for like the Bible of the show, so you can like inform their decisions and lie. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
And I wrote it into into the outline in a way that it just didn't need to be there. Mm-hmm. And it was for me.
But it's good to know for yourself. Yeah.
But I need to figure out what can come out and what can go in, and then sort of separate those things out. So this is really helping me clarify that. And then I really like the act structure, the way you help me clarify that, where then we can do one side finds out at the end of Act 2, and then the other side
And then
finds out
yeah. And
at
if you
the end of Act
have
3.
if you have that, if you have those big tentpole moments, it makes it easier to fill in the like path to get to those tentpole moments, right? And then to get to the end. And also you have the like overall theme that you want. So like when you are thinking of those individual scenes, you can think of how the theme of control plays in on every scene that you write, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Damn. I think you got like a really fucking strong like overall like idea, a funny premise, good characters. The like control fits into it so well in so many different ways, like with all the different characters, like what their relationship is with control, how they approach control, how they have control, lose control, gain control. Like it's like a good like yeah, I like this a lot, James. You have a great idea.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's really, really helpful to like work through this too.
Yeah. I love shit. Like, I mean, that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I love shit like that.
You
I
great
love
notes and
ideas.
great
I love
ideas.
talking through them. James, do you have anything you'd like to plug? I know you're doing a couple podcasts right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I got the one podcast, A Dangerous Thing, with Chip Chantry. Me and Chip Chantry have that. That we release those. They go up on Monday. We promote them on Tuesday, but they're up every week. A Dangerous. You can follow us at ADT Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can download those wherever you get them. And then Depressed Chef, I release every other week.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to. I used to do seasons, and I'm now trying to do just every other week and make it continuous. Is sort of my plan. I think that's a schedule that I can keep up.
It's great.
I used to do like weekly as seasons, and I would go crazy by the end. And I think continuous every other week is more manageable.
Yeah, Depressed Chef is great. It's a nihilistic cooking show.
You really learn how to make recipes
and make peace with the fact that you're going to die someday.
Yeah, and A Dangerous Thing is in that same infotainment thing where
it's
Chip and I teach each other based on topics that we take one theme, we research it, we go into it, and then we talk about. So I don't know. For I don't know what's a random one. We did food, and I talked about how bananas are inherently evil. Maybe not inherently, but we use them to colonize Central America. Yeah. So there's a whole history of bananas that's really dark and fucked up. So you could learn about
things and laugh along the way.
And we tell jokes about it. And
it's a fun listen. And for people who are listening to this, the only thing I'm plugging, it's patreon.com/Aaron Hertzog. There's already, if you're listening to this now, there's already a bonus episode with James that's up there right now. And guess what? If you're new to this podcast because of James, if you sign up for the Patreon this week while this episode's new, James gets half the money for all my new Patreon subscribers.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's the deal. So my guests will plug my shit.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Every new subscriber for this week, James gets 50% of that. And if you stick around for additional months, that's all me, baby. That's the goal. If you get a few people to sign up and then they stick around, I reap the benefits long term.
That is really smart.
That's my long con, James. But yeah, patreon.com/Aaron Hertzog. You can hear me and James talking about, I'll give you a little teaser of what I'm going to ask James to help me talk about. It's walking. Thanks for listening. This has been Have You Heard This for this week. James Hesky, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Hertzog. That was so much fun, man. That was so much fun.